Hi, my name is Jamie Lynch, and you are listening to Eating Habits, my podcast about everything restaurants. I will explore the human element of the hospitality business, and I'll talk to the who's who in restaurants, explore their stories, and hear what's on their minds in the ever-changing landscape of the food and beverage industry.
Hey, I'm Bruce Moffett, and you're listening to Eating Habits.
Hey there, listeners. Jamie here. I would like to give you a quick update before we get into this week's episode. We just wrapped up 4 days of the Charleston Wine and Food Festival. It was an awesome weekend filled with great energy. Tons of people came from all over the country, and I even got to get 2 of my top chef buddies in front of the mic. I'm really excited to share those episodes with you in the coming weeks, but for now, here's our episode with Bruce Moffett.
Bruce Moffett, welcome to Eating Habits. So you and I have known each other for a long time, since I think
At least 18 years?
Yeah.
I think. Was the first time you came in and applied?
Was it 2009? Is that right? 2008? You were
when did you move to Charlotte?
I moved to Charlotte in 2002, and I worked.
I think you came in a place.
Oh, I applied before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent in an application. You're right.
And I met you then.
That's a good story.
You were the first person. You're one of the first people to ever walk in and apply for a job. And I looked at your resume and I thought you had more qualifications than I did. So I was a little hesitant.
You didn't hire me at that point.
I did not.
I'm glad that you said that because that's funny because I got here in February 2002 after 9/11.
Yeah.
And I went to Barrington's.
Because you and Scott Weiland came in.
Yeah. And I went to, basically there were, I think, 3 chef-driven restaurants or chef-owned, operated type restaurants.
Rudy.
Yep.
Gene.
I interviewed with them.
Who's doing really good.
Oh, not interviewed. I dropped off resumes with them.
Yeah.
And nobody hired me.
And what's his name? Condren.
Yep. And who I ended up working with was Mark Martin.
Mark Martin. Oh,
yeah. Remember Mark? So Mark was the only one of you guys who looked at my resume and said, well, we went to the same school. I guess I'll give him a shot. Oh, that's funny.
Mark always tells me how lucky I am and what a great location I had.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think I worked my ass off.
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of where you come from, because you and I kind of come from the same vector of the East. I grew up in Marblehead, Mass, North Shore of Boston.
I grew up in Barrington, Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. So, Rhode Island.
Yeah. How long were you in Rhode Island?
I think we moved there when I was 4, and I left after I graduated from college.
Okay, so and what were you in your early 20s, maybe?
Yeah.
And did you move to Charlotte from?
No,
you went.
No, I went to DC.
You had a little political career
and worked for a U.S. senator, and then from there I followed a girl out to L.A. Disaster. Went back to DC, and the same week I got fired from my job, and my girlfriend broke up with me. So I had one of my best friends from Charlotte told me to come check Charlotte out. So I went to check out Charlotte, and we were just kind of trying to figure out what we wanted to do when we grew up, and we talked each other into buying a pizza place. So we bought this pizza place, and I started dating his wife's friend. She got pregnant. The whole pizza place thing fell apart. My relationship fell apart, so I cut bait and applied for the Culinary Institute, got accepted there, so moved to New York.
That was CIA.
Yes,
Culinary
CIA.
Institute of America.
Yep. And then from CIA, I went to Atlanta for 2 years, then Boston for 4 years, and then to Charlotte.
In Boston, you worked at L'Espalier, right?
I did, yeah, and a little place called Metropolis.
I remember Metropolis too. Which one of those experiences do you think had the most impact on your kind of decision making or culinary drive to kind of do your own thing, become a chef and do all that?
Well, I think that's a 2-part answer. L'Espalier definitely was the greatest influence of any job I ever had on my culinary. I started out as a line cook there and it was just in over my head and got demoted. And I thought it was kind of the worst thing that could ever happen. But I became the AM pantry guy, so I learned how to do pastries. I learned how to make stocks. I learned how to make sauces. I was responsible for the amuse, coming up with the ideas, putting it all together, figuring out what was in the walk-in, like figuring out how to make all the leftover stuff in the walk-in work as an amuse and all that, and then work some pantry, this, that, the other when people were missing. And so at the time, I thought it was awful because I got demoted, but what I really learned was how to cook and how flavors went together and flavor combinations. And Frank McClellan was the chef there, and as a mentor, he was really good. I think I was pretty despondent one day, and he finally looked at me and said, "You know what? You might not be the greatest line cook. You probably never will, but you know how to cook. You know how to put flavors together." He's like, "I can hire pretty much anyone off the street to be a line cook." I said, "But like what you have is special, and and embrace that, and you'll eventually learn to be a better line cook, and you'll succeed in this industry." So from a culinary perspective, he was my greatest influence. And then I knew from previous experience that I just didn't want to manage a ton of people, but I liked running my own gig. And so when I got the job at Metropolis, it was a 40-seat restaurant, and it made great money. The owner made great money there, and it was really, so when I went there, it was kind of, well, how am I going to learn what he knows, and how am I going to learn to make a 40-seat restaurant profitable? And I mean, the short answer is work your ass off. And the other answer is, to be really kind of one step ahead of everyone else, one step ahead of your vendors, one step ahead of your employees, one step ahead of everyone else. And everything you do is intentional. You have a reason for doing it. This is why we do it. This is how we do it. And this is the result of doing it. And so Seth really taught me all about that. I started out as a pantry cook. Then the lead line cook quit, so I got his job. Then the sous chef quit, so I got his job. Then the chef quit, so I got his job. Then the people that owned it got divorced. And the manager got arrested and left. But that's a whole nother story. So I was kind of running the whole restaurant. And, I think with all that, I learned how to hit a curveball. And so I could walk in, and the whole kitchen was flooded one day, and the apartment below us, the ceiling had caved in. I walk in, dealt with all that stuff, got the kitchen cleaned up, got the plumber out there, and got open for service. And I think once you kind of know how to kind of manage your stress level and just get into, okay, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. And I think that's really what I learned at Metropolis, was to kind of, and how to put together a really nice meal with 3 people. I mean, you dealt with that at Barrington.
Yeah. So sounds like Metropolis was kind of the framework for Barrington's.
That was absolutely the framework.
Yeah.
There's still the old chef. We didn't leave on great terms with the old chef that worked there. When I got nominated for a James Beard Award, went nuts on social media because I had 2 or 3 dishes from Metropolis on my thing, and he's like, "Well, you're not a real chef," and blah blah blah. And I was like, "Well, I kind of am."
Yeah, that's funny. So Barrington's, when I moved here in 2002, I think you'd been open for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. You opened in 2000 at Barrington's.
Yeah, October. That's
you consider that South Park.
Yes.
Yeah, Fairview Road.
Yeah, but hidden from the road.
Yeah, it's kind of, I wouldn't call it a strip mall, but it's in a little shopping.
It's a strip mall.
Yeah. A little, but nicer than what I consider a.
It's kind of a Charlotte strip mall that just feels like it has New England roots.
Right. It has a Ben and Jerry's in it, so it's kind of New England-y.
And shiplap, and I walked in and I just kind of felt like this is very Rhode Island. It was just, it was very random. I had walked in there, I was visiting my son who lived here, and I walked in to apply for a job. And I said, Fran, who's hiring? I think I'm at a sous chef level. Are there any places in Charlotte right now that you think maybe I should go work? And she said, well, actually, I'm trying to sell the restaurant. Would you be interested in buying it? So I went back to Boston, changed my mind every day for about a month, as only I can.
Yep.
And
we can talk more about that in a minute.
And finally, I was like, you owe yourself a few risks in life. Let's do this.
Yeah, that's pretty ballsy.
Yeah.
So at that time, you considered yourself to be at a sous chef level. You had the awareness of your own experience and knowledge to say, hey, I'm not a businessman. I'm not an executive chef. I'm not at that level yet. Yet through that back and forth, you decided to take the risk. You went ahead and made the deal, obviously.
I think I consider myself as a chef owner level. I just was I didn't know the Charlotte market at all. And I was kind of skeptical that, someone would bring me in as an executive chef and kind of entrust me to run their restaurant. So I was thinking, sous chef, executive chef, that type of thing.
Yeah. How did you flush out the concept for Barrington's, like what the food would be like? Well, how did that come about? Like, obviously the size was what you were looking for from your Metropolis experience.
Yeah.
So you're like, hey, I definitely want this size fits what I'm doing. How did you flush out like what that would be?
I mean, I just basically brought Metropolis to Charlotte. As I said, everything at Metropolis was very intentional. And so I brought basically the menu format, which was, very structured. So we'll have a salad, a composed salad, a seafood app, a meat app, and then, maybe a foie gras. So we're going to have 5 appetizers.
Definitely a foie gras. There was always a foie gras on the menu. There's
yeah.
always a foie gras on the menu.
And then we would have 4 pastas, and there would be a cream-based pasta, a tomato-based pasta, and then, 2 other pastas. And so it was always kind of like, and if I were going to change something on the menu, I would pull out a cream-based pasta for another cream-based pasta. So I kept it, and there was always 2 meats, a chicken, and 2 fish. So it was always, so I would pull one out and then insert another based on the seasons and what I saw at the market. So that was a really big surprise when I moved here. Like, I did not realize that there was really a pretty strong farmer community here, and that because I got my first order in from Cisco, because that was what I thought I needed to do, and I was like, well, what the hell did I just do? Like, it was awful, like greenish tomatoes and stuff. And so I think it was Grudy. I met Tim Grudy, and he told me about the Matthews Farmers Market, and then I met Sammy, and then I knew it was going to be okay.
Yeah. Do you still stick with the same format?
I do.
Yeah.
At Barrington's.
I'm going to close my eyes and throw a dart at the board and say that the chicken with the confit garlic and wilted spinach is still on the menu. That would be. You get shot, right? There would be a fucking revolt.
Yeah.
If you tried to take that off the menu.
That would not go well.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
And that was a Metropolis dish.
Yeah. I actually used that dish when we opened Five Church, the same one. Yeah. Like, I was like, you know what? I need to have a safety net.
Yeah.
Because when we opened,
that's good comfort food right there.
Yeah, and it's delicious. Like, it's mashed potatoes, spinach, and like the garlic. Like, it's just a very good dish, right? I mean, shit, I eat a meal that's similar to that at least once a week.
Yeah.
We do roasted chicken at least once a week, and usually not with potatoes, but always spinach.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like one of those things that you're like hardwired to appreciate.
Yeah.
And I think I used that on our opening menu just because I had to have something that anybody could get and it would be good.
Right.
I mean, I'd been doing it for years with you, so I was like, I know this is a winner.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna sell a bunch of them.
And
I don't want to sell the
profitable.
chicken, but it's gonna sell.
Yeah.
Why do you stick with that format? Is there something to that, or is it just comfortable? Do you think? Is it just a system that works?
Yeah, I think it's a system that works. I mean, I think when people go to restaurants, they have expectations and cravings. I think I try to meet them. If you go in and you're craving fettuccine Alfredo, but there's another cream-based pasta on the menu, then you're going to find something that you want. And I think due to the limitations of the kitchen size and the amount and the fussiness of the food that we can produce, I think that having that format touches all the bases and allows the menu to stay small enough so that it's manageable.
Yeah.
So
barely manageable.
Barely.
Yeah. I guess it's like, I remember.
There's nights when it's not manageable.
Yeah. So I think I cooked with you. I was a sous chef for you for, I think, 3 years. I think from 2008 till, well, we opened in 2012, Five Church. So I left in 2011. So 8, 9, 10. So it was like 3.5 years or something. Wow. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Looking back at how
it's funny because when you called me and I was telling people I was going to go see you, it was interesting because I think you learned some stuff from me along the way, and what I was saying about you was you were one of the most efficient cooks that I'd ever seen. Like there was not a lot of wasted movement. There was multiple steps all packed into one when you moved through the kitchen. It was just, and I learned, so for me as a chef owner, I learned a lot from you, just kind of watching your efficiencies and how you went through the kitchen. So that was, hopefully it was a good kind of mutual relationship that we had there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the reason I came to you first off was I had been working for Gene Briggs at Blue and Table for years.
Yeah.
And I love Gene to death.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to have him on the show tomorrow. He's going to come talk with me.
Okay. He seems really happy right now.
Yeah, he's in a great spot.
Yeah.
And I loved working with him. I worked with him for I think 6 years, helped him open. I came like a couple of months after Blue opened.
Yeah.
John Matthews recruited me he was a sous chef for Gene and recruited me to come work with them. And then, so I stayed with him for like 6 years and that was great. I enjoyed working with him. We had a great rapport. That restaurant was a beast, man. And we just got annihilated like all the time.
Yeah. And the way that kitchen was laid out.
Yeah. The layout for the kitchen sucked. It was awful to work in. So I was getting to the point now where in my career, where I was like, okay, I'm done like grinding for people. Like I'm ready to start moving towards my dream, which is to do a chef driven thing.
And Table was delicious. It was one of the best restaurants in Charlotte and one of the worst neighborhoods.
Yeah, it was. They picked we had the wrong location for what we were doing. I loved that restaurant, and the kitchen design was awesome. Like we had learned from our mistakes at Blue, implemented that stuff at Table, and it just was in the wrong neighborhood to do it. But so I came to you because I had heard of you when I got to town. You were one of the people you were the hot shit at the time. I mean, you were doing the thing. People were talking about your food. They were talking about your little restaurant and how it was like, fast forward 6 years, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, it was right. I hired you when Carrie went over to Good Food.
Right. It was right before. I think I worked with Carrie for about 2 or 3 weeks before Good Food actually was like, they moved into that kitchen.
Right.
And so I wanted to work with you for a long time, but your kitchen staff is 3 people. And so there's not a whole lot of turnover or opportunities.
And no one ever leaves.
Yeah. And I think I had talked to you a couple times. Like I'd reached out and said, hey, what's going on? You're like, I'm kind of locked. Like I've got all this stuff going on. I'm not really got any space. So luckily that worked out.
Yeah.
I learned a ton from you because your operation was what I wanted. I wanted something small, controllable. You were clearly doing it well and successful at it because you were opening another one. There's also not that big.
Right.
It's a little bigger, but not by much.
Not by much.
And all the restaurants that I had worked in were like these like meccas of French, whatever. And so I wanted to learn that stuff. And I did. I learned a ton about, you're speaking about being a step ahead of everybody. I think I learned that from you. The checking on the pricing from different vendors, holding your vendors accountable, which is something that I'd never seen before. Like, I mean, you would get on the phone and bust fucking balls, like straight up. I would be in the kitchen prepping for dinner service because we basically like redid the menu like basically every day, like prep the menu, and you'd be screaming at Mickey or somebody like about some hacked up piece of fish that we paid full price for or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot about.
I gave Mickey PTSD.
Yeah, totally. And so I learned a ton about how to operate a small business and structure a menu in a way that was appealing to the masses, but still gave you leeway to play and fulfill some of that like artistic, creative stuff that we have.
That's what I set out to do. It gave me, you have a lot of opportunities to play but there's tried and true stuff too.
How was that experience for you? Like the opening of Barrington's and then like making it a profitable business? Was it profitable straight away? Was that kind of like a learning curve where you were?
It surprisingly was. Like in the early days, though, there were days, we weren't very busy. And people, I guess because we were so hidden and people just didn't understand what I was trying to do. And like it would just be me and Carrie in the kitchen. And we would do the dishes, do the prep, do the dinner, clean up and go home.
How many covers would you do like in those early
anywhere from like 14 to 20?
Yeah,
and then the weekends were a little bit busier. We had extra people on the weekends, but it wasn't a lot. So I didn't have any payroll at all. I had Peggy and 3 servers, and I had me and Carrie in the kitchen and maybe one other. So I mean, but we were able to keep our heads above water during that time. And then about 7 months into it, I got a review from Helen Schwab. I got 4 out of 4 stars, and it just went nuts.
That's awesome.
And that's when I got Larry to come down and help out. He was in New York working at an Outback Steakhouse.
Really?
Yeah.
That's that's so great. And then was it just like gangbusters from there, like catching up to?
Yeah, it never slowed down after that.
So what's a busy service for you? Like the most wicked Saturday night?
Our biggest ever was like 110 people, maybe.
I think we did. We did one of those when I was there. And I was like, holy shit! I felt like we just got
a comfortable night is like in the 70s, 70s to 80s.
70s to 80s is busy,
challenging, but not like you don't want to. You don't feel broken afterwards.
Yeah.
We did 240 at Stagione the other night. I thought we broke Brittany.
Oh man, why is it so difficult to do those numbers in that volume? Do you think? Like, why is it so difficult to do that number, to do 100 covers at Barrington's?
Well, I mean, it's twofold. I think people want to stay there at Barrington, so it's really hard for us sometimes to turn our tables.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, you have 3 people responsible for cooking. You know, maybe if you do 100 people, maybe 300 or more dishes. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of food going out of a very small kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the plating surface, I remember it's that one station on Sauté that's, I don't know, maybe 6 feet long by like maybe 1.5 feet deep. So you can only line up 6 plates at a time.
And it's not, not like we're pre-searing our chicken or, it's not like we're pretty much cooking everything to scratch on a flat top, 6 burners.
Yep.
You remember, it's like culinary Tetris.
Well, and one of those burners has got a pasta pot on it. So so you only have 5 burners realistically to cook on.
So you're constantly thinking, okay, I'm going to get this pan on, and I'm going to get that in the oven, and then when that is on, I'm going to get this pan on. And so, you get 4 or 5 pastas that are, made in the pan to order.
You're in the weeds.
Yeah.
You're weeded.
You just don't have the burner space to.
So when I came, I was in the weeds the whole time I was there.
Yeah.
Like straight. I feel like that whole thing, I was just constantly in the weeds. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, Jesus, is it ever going to end? But, I got a lot out of that experience because I got to use the skills that I learned in New York. And there weren't the other restaurants that I'd worked in prior to that. Yeah. I mean, I seared steaks at Blue. Like I was a sous chef. I ran around, did orders and stuff, but like we sold more fillets at that restaurant than I'd ever seen in my life. Like,
and I don't sell filet. It's weird. If I have it on the menu, it doesn't really sell that well.
Really? Good on you for doing that. Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, in my restaurants now, we sell a lot of fillets.
Yeah. It's been the weirdest thing that steaks just don't really sell well in that restaurant.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Well, the other thing that was nice too is you get to touch, like you're responsible for every plate that goes out.
Yeah.
Like if it comes back and it doesn't taste good or whatever it is, like you've had some, no matter where you are in that kitchen, you've had some sort of touch on that plate. Yeah. You touch every plate that goes out, and I think that's
your style of plating is not simple. You have, I mean, it's clean. Yeah. Your plate ups are clean, but there's a lot of touches. There's a lot of like, this goes here, sauce here, like takes a lot. And I remember one of the difficult things for me when I was working that Sauté station was getting all the food like cooked properly. Like that's difficult enough, but you also have to plate.
Yeah. And pulling down bowls.
You're trying to get set for the next plate up and then plate. And then of course you got the other hands helping, but like they're in the shit too. Like everybody's in the shit, and there's like, you kind of have to work as a team and take turns. And it's like, okay, we're going to play apps real quick. We're going to like fire out these foie gras and then we got to go on these 20 other dishes.
Yeah.
And it was a really awesome kind of chaotic energy.
Yeah. Yeah. When it works, it's fun. Yeah. When it doesn't work, it's miserable.
Yeah. I remember smashing some pans.
Yeah.
And that like monkey fisting these pans and just smashing them on the ground. Do you remember that? I would lose my shit sometimes.
I remember kicking a pan once.
Yeah.
and catching it a little better than I thought. And it like shot right over the dishwasher's head and smashed on the wall. And it was just because I dropped it on the floor. Like I wasn't mad at anyone. And I was like, oh, and I was trying to get it out of my way, and he quit. I had to do the dishes and do the cooking that night.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of space in that kitchen to not affect the people around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an interesting thought, because a lot of what I do now is thinking about, I mean, we've Fifth Street Group, my team, we're working on how to change how we do business.
Right.
Right.
I love that. You've read Kitchen Confidential, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I was in New York, like that was.
I mean, you get past the stuff that happened on the Cape and this and that, but when he's talking about like driving into work, thinking about, well, so and so's working the saute station tonight, and he's not very good, but my guy on the grill slays it. So I'm going to take one item off the saute station. I'm going to put it on maybe put a special off the grill station. That kind of always kind of train of thought of like, these are my chess pieces and how do I best utilize them and stuff. And I think that like Barrington's probably is good to give you a foundation, and it's just, but like our just a realization that that's like how you have to think. And I can't imagine doing it on your scale.
It's difficult. It's difficult, but it's the same thing. It's just to scale, right?
Right.
And you know what changes, and I learned this the hard way, is the menu had to change. The menu that we opened with was it was a different style than we did at Barrington's, but my plating was very similar to yours. Like it had a lot of garnishes and touches and textures and elements to complete the dish, and it wasn't possible. Like we did it for about 8 months. Yeah. It was hard. I almost like blew my brains out a couple of times because I was like, what am I doing?
And I made that mistake at Stagione. I made that mistake at Good Food too.
Yeah. And just you kind of have to learn from like, what can I do?
Yeah. You come in with one sense of sensibility or one sensibility, and then you understand. Yeah. Pretty immediately. But I think the thing that separates the good restaurants and the better restaurants is the fact that you can own the fact that your initial idea wasn't perfect, and that you all sit around as an organization and kind of hash it out. Well, what went right? What went wrong? What can we do? Like, what can we compromise, but what won't we compromise? And I think that's the magic formula. Yeah.
And I think it takes a level of maturity, professional maturity, to learn that. Cause I don't think that I accomplished that level of professional maturity until maybe, we might have been 3 years into, we might have opened Nana Byron's by that point, our second restaurant, and been working on Charleston when I started to like come to grips with all that. As things are expanding, I was like, wait a minute, we got to change that. How do you manage that now? You've got your hands full. You've got 5 projects, four restaurants that are yours, and then you've got a partnership with Larry at the Bun Spot. Do you keep your team? Do you meet with your team and say, hey guys, what are we going to do? Or is this a vision of, like this is Bruce's vision, how are we going to execute it? How are you managing that as you expand?
I think, I haven't done a great job of it lately, but one thing that we did that was really good was we set up a system, a weekly meeting. Chris Reed helped us out with that. We set up a weekly meeting, and we kind of do all our metrics. We were this busy this week. And then we do our schedule. We have this going on, this going on, this going on, and then we have our issues. And I think we really kind of delve into a lot of the issues. And I think some of the issues are restaurant specific, and some of the issues translate throughout the restaurant system. And so I think that's been helpful, because I don't pretend to know everything. And I've always gone out of my way, to hire mature, responsible people that know as much as I do or more, and then not be arrogant enough to think that I need to like put them in their place. And if what they says has merit, then that's great. And if I don't think it's the right call, then I'll say I don't think it's the right call, and we can hash out why I don't think it's the right call and what your thought process was behind it. So I try to keep it pretty broad based and not really all that autocratic.
Have you suffered from a lot of turnover?
Yeah. I think
is it more now than
Barrington so much, but
yeah.
Oh yeah. everyone keeps saying pandemic or it's going to get better, but at the end of the day, I think some people left the workforce during the pandemic. Some people are aging out of the workforce. The expansion has just been off the charts. I mean, when I opened Barrington's, the rule of thumb was one restaurant per shopping center because they were high risk and there was enough retail to kind of maintain these shopping centers. And now it's 4 to 5 to 6 restaurants per shopping center. And there's just not the workforce
to support
that. It's, at the end of the day, it's the job's not for everyone. You don't have weekends, you work nights, kitchens are hot, kitchens are dangerous. It's a grueling lifestyle, and it's not for everyone. And I think that at this point, the kind of glory and the allure of opening restaurants has outpaced our workforce.
Yeah.
And I think that it is what it is. I don't think it's going to necessarily, and I think shutting down the borders for 5 years or 6 years or whatever we've managed to do is not
helping.
Going to help either.
No, I agree with that. Do you have plans to expand any further, or what are you up to now? I mean,
I think I'm good right now.
You feel good with where you're at?
I'm 57, and the only thing I might do another NC Red. And I'd love to do. I might change the name, but I would love to do an NC Red in New England.
So
I think that would kill it in Newport.
I'm not sure if I started fantasizing about it because I was looking at my calendar and saw that you were coming up, and I was like thinking about Marblehead and the town I grew up, and I was like, man, I would love to do a New England,
kill the New England part and then throw some Southern in, because New Englanders get confused.
Kind of reverse what you did, which is bring New England to the South, kind of reverse it.
Yeah,
that would crush. Actually,
I think it would do well in Newport or one of the beach towns.
Yeah, totally. That would be fun. So let's talk about NC Red a little bit. So that you took over an iconic spot.
Yeah,
the Penguin Drive-In, which I actually worked at for a hot minute before we started working together. I would highlight as the fry cook over there for free beer on the weekends, just for shits and giggles. That was a lot of fun. So you took that spot over when the Penguin guys moved out, turned it into how would you describe it?
It was North meets South. So it was North Carolina fried chicken, collards, grits, that type of stuff. Fried catfish, and then I mixed in a lot of what I grew up with, New England shore food, and it was lobster rolls, just simple grilled fish, raw bar stuff, baked oysters.
How did the neighborhood respond to that concept over there? Were people stoked about it? I mean, it
felt like it. I think we got absolutely crushed at the beginning, and I think we definitely had our learning curve. And then it kind of, after about 6 months, it fell off a cliff and got super slow. And then slowly it was building, and then the pandemic hit. And then it just, we did really well with the takeout business. And then, but that's just a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And then I closed it down for 3 months and just kind of dialed everything in. I was running. I could never get the right. I love my managers there, but the numbers were just wrong, and so we had to go back and kind of start from.
Are you talking about the financials? Like the books were just
were wrong. I was running a really high, a 40% labor cost, and I was running a 40% food cost, and I just couldn't.
Do you think those numbers were accurate, or do you think that there's something wrong with the bookkeeping or just the systems or whatever?
No, the numbers were accurate.
Yeah.
It was
that's not a viable
user error.
Yeah, it's not a viable.
It wasn't a viable, and so I think one of the things that I've been able to do is make so much money during my busy time because we get it dialed in quickly, and be able to save that and bankroll it and have it last me through, because I think Charlotte always runs that trajectory where you're super busy out of the gate and then it slows down for a while. And then you become an established restaurant, it works. And I think because we couldn't get our food and labor costs in line, I didn't make enough money to get through that slower period. Yeah.
Gotcha. So at that point you decided just to close it down? Or?
We closed it down, reinvented it, really dialed everything in. And it was a really good process to go through. I can tell you we had it all logged into a system where we knew to a penny what we were spending on everything, and what our food cost was, and then we dialed back our labor. And so potential there was there, and then we kind of opened up, and it didn't get back rolling as quickly as I thought it would. And then so I kind of pulled the panic button, and it's also a quality of life button too. It was one more thing to worry about, and it was one more headache. And so I kind of pulled the panic button, and I got in touch with Frank, another operator, and I said, hey, I know you've been interested in this spot for a long time. What do you think about taking it over? And so he did. And then once I kind of verbally made that commitment, my sales went up like 35%.
Of course, because that's the way it rolls, right?
Because that's the way things go.
Yeah,
but it definitely left me feeling like that the amount of people that I've had come up to me and tell me how sad they were when that closed. So it definitely left me with a feeling that there's something to that concept, and and that was always going to be my thing, that maybe I could open up multiple locations.
Yeah. I think that model can work on scale too. Like you could do it in a lot of different places. If it's done well,
right?
Like the trick of it is like, and you would do it well for sure, because I know I want to talk about locality and ingredients and stuff too.
Yeah, it was a lot of high cost ingredients.
Yeah,
and the neighborhood is fine. It's kind of a big mismatch of people, and like I've found that there was a lot more like customer conflict than in any other of my other restaurants.
What do you mean by customer like what was the conflict?
Just a lot of like, the parking being at a premium. People legally parked, and we would say something to them, and they get super aggressive about not. We towed one lady, and I thought she was going to blow up the restaurant. And just conflicts about things that we had no control over, and people coming in and just causing scenes, and it just getting a lot more difficult, and then just getting caught up in some of the social media stuff that goes on in that neighborhood and things like that. We had these 3 very conservative female politicians went and photographed themselves in front of the NC Red logo, and
turned it into a political
all of a sudden
social media post.
And all of a sudden I became a Trumper, and no one wants me in the neighborhood. And it was just like, I don't really have control of people taking photos in a public place. Like, it's not like, they're more than welcome to take a photo in front of the NC Red, and I don't want to try to mediate that, and I just want to cook food. I don't want to be political.
Wow, that's crazy.
So the neighborhood, I was just always like, wait, what? So there was a lot of that went on there.
Who's got time for that kind of nonsense?
Yeah, and I just felt like but I think the whole neighborhood's changing too, and maybe that's a little sad.
Yeah. So let's talk about the quality of life thing, since that played a little bit of a part in it. How do you manage that in your day to day through your businesses and for longevity purposes?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we've all probably assessed over COVID. When we were told that, I know this is what you do for a living, I know this is what you love, but you can't do this for a living, and you can't do what you love anymore. We're going to shut you down. And they just shut us down and made us get rid of all our employees. And then they opened us back up, and at that point, we're scrambling to get all our employees back. And
it's like reopening a restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, hey, and so when you kind of deal with that and all the different pivots that we've had to take, and that we're kind of government man. Okay, we're at 50%, and if you stand up, you have to have a mask on. But if you sit down, you don't. But I'm supposed to police people coming in. And oh wait, we had the police in here. What was it? The police? No, maybe it was the health inspector. I'm not sure. It was either a policeman or a health inspector. But they were here with a ruler, and they were measuring how far our tables are apart. And they said this table is 6 inches too close, so that we need to take a table out or move or somehow expand it. And you're just like, oh my God, make it stop. And so it just kind of, when you're just constantly faced with like someone just really trying to hinder an already difficult business, it just kind of makes you think about like what makes me happy and what makes me unhappy. And we've been doing this for 21 years or more, and it's just at what point is enough.
Yeah.
And it's just, you've got customers that are edgy and you've got employees that are scared. And it just kind of makes you reassess where's my quality of life? When do I get to go to Switzerland and go, which I did, and go skiing? And am I really tied to this restaurant? Cause I don't know who's going to show up on any given day. And so it's made me reassess a lot of stuff.
The hours of ops at Barrington's, you closed on Sunday.
Yeah.
Cause I remember, and
Monday through Saturday.
We always got 2 days off.
Oh, and Peggy opened the patio.
Oh, really?
And now calls it her patio.
She can have it.
Yep.
Then you have to serve it, clean it.
Yeah.
You have to dust all the glasses out there.
And listen to Jason complain about it.
Yeah. Oh, man. So now you have, what do you have? 60 seats now?
Yeah, it's crazy.
God. That's too much. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. I would have I quit. I'm out of here. 40 was enough for me.
Yeah.
But we had a really good schedule there. We worked our asses off. We never really had. I don't remember ever having kind of a schedule. It was kind of like you're off. You're either off Monday or Tuesday usually,
Right.
and everybody's off Sunday. And then you come in whenever you need to be here to get your work done.
Right.
It wasn't like you got to be here at noon or you got to be here at 1. It's just like, hey, if you
just as long as you're here by 2,
Yeah.
And your work is done.
Yeah. If you can get work done from 2 to 5, go for it.
Yeah.
Whatever. I never came in at 2.
No.
Ever.
Mm-mm. You were 12:30.
I was a 12:30 guy. I just had too much shit to do.
Yeah.
It's I remember bringing. I think that was the first place that I brought Max to work with me.
Yeah.
I put him in the stock pot or something next to my station one day.
Well, that's kind of the cool thing about that restaurant is is you can challenge or unchallenge yourself as much as you want. I mean, back in the early days, I remember doing a duck dish where I boned out a duck leg. I made a force meat, included foie gras, wrapped it, cured it for 3 days, and then confit it, and then sliced medallions. And it's just I would never do something like that right now.
Hey, hell, that's a commitment.
Make your life as difficult as your easiest, but that's kind of what I liked about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's your approach now? When you're developing a menu these days, are you looking at what inspires you in your menus these days?
Yeah, I think I go back to having a balanced menu, and then a lot of what the local farmers are bringing in. One of the nice things about Stagioni is we use so much pork that we've been able to get 1 or 2 pigs every other week from Isaac. And
awesome.
We bring in whole pigs, break them down ourselves, utilize every last piece of it. We deal with Newtown Farms still, Boy and Girl Farms and all those. And we just kind of every week we look forward to seeing what they've got on their list and kind of base a lot of our decisions around, what they're growing, what they're planning on growing, and move into that realm. Stagioni, we keep it Italian, but loosely Italian.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
you're not
French
die hard Italian rules with this sauce needs to go with this shape of pasta. You guys are loose. You'll play a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Blur the lines.
Kind of. Yeah, I think one of the, in my opinion, one of the biggest things about Italian cooking, it's what's available.
Yeah.
And so as long as we're using what's available, I think we're 2/3 of the way there.
Yeah. I think that's another thing that I enjoyed about working with you guys. We used the market when I worked with Gene.
Yeah.
But that was a monster restaurant. I mean, we were doing 450 covers a night. Sammy and his team, his kids, his children couldn't dig up enough potatoes to be able to deal with us. So we bought from them basically just for features, for fun, for inspiration. Working with you, I mean, we use the market as a source of our product. And we would have that product for 3 or 4 days. And then, we'd get a delivery on Wednesday that would carry us till Saturday where we'll go to the market.
The more money I can give to them and the less money I can give to my broadliners, I'm happier.
Why?
Because I can see the direct effect I have on their family, and it's a locally based, and I've made a living out of my local customers, and so I like to repay that and keep it as local as possible. But at the end of the day, if I can find a French cheese that I like better than a North Carolina cheese, I'll take the French cheese.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
I think the food's better too. I mean, I think it just hands down.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I learned. Another thing I learned working through the kitchen with you guys, and because I have a great relationship with Sammy now as well. I met Sammy, I think, from Mark over at Ethan's, but then, continued that relationship when I was working with you, and then eventually made him come mentor me when I opened my farm. I was like, hey, now you're my mentor. And he was like, oh man, really? And I was like, sorry. And, I learned that and really got attracted and inspired by cooking locally in New York, and you probably in Rhode Island too. You get access to great vegetables.
Yeah, absolutely.
The seasons
we
are
always had a garden when I was growing up.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too, because but we'll get to that in a second. We had great vegetables in New York, awesome vegetables, but we didn't know the farmers that grew them. Like they came in on a boat or a ship or wherever, and they were still immaculate. They were expensive, but then having the community based around that product and the stuff literally like the stuff coming from Newtown Farm or Boy Girl Farm. I mean, the stuff.
I've bike ride with Sammy for years.
Yeah, so, and the food's coming, like that product's coming out a day, 12 hours before you're peeling it or whatever.
Right.
It changes how you can cook. You don't have to work so hard to make something excellent.
No, you have to work hard to not screw it up.
That's the trick that I started to pay attention to.
Yeah, and that's one thing I tell people is like, how do I know when I'm a chef? And it's like, you're a chef when you know when to stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you can edit yourself and pull back and say, oh, wait.
It does not need one more ingredient.
Yeah. I'm still working on that. I'm not there yet. I'm a lot better now, but I'm not there yet.
I was trying to find your mole recipe the other day.
The mole?
Yeah.
I'll give it to you.
Best mole ever.
Just text me. I'll give it to you. I'll send it to you after.
All right.
So let's talk about the garden growing up. I know that your family had a pretty strong impact on you. I've got a copy of your book here I want to talk about. Because that's something I've been interested in. Maybe thinking about doing a cookbook, maybe doing something. So I want to talk about that experience. But you touch on your family in here and how important your mom and your grandma was to your attachment to the kitchen and to food.
So my parents got divorced when I was 2. So I grew up with my mom and my sister. We bounced around a little bit, but mainly Rhode Island. And then my grandparents were in Rhode Island. My grandmother and grandfather got divorced, so single grandmother. And my mother and my grandmother always had gardens. And so basically as a kid, you were like, go out and pick me 13 green beans, 6 tomatoes, and 4 potatoes. And you would go out and bring that specific amount. And then my grandma was very French influenced, so we'd concassate the tomatoes, like we'd blanch them, peel the skin, take the seeds out. And then there was a very specific way of making this, and then blanch the green beans, shock them, serve them chilled, and then use the lettuce that we pulled out of the garden. So everything was just like, right out. So I got kind of used to that kind of detail-oriented, meticulous, like these are the steps of cooking.
Yeah.
And you don't cheat on any of them. And this is the result if you utilize these steps and pull them out of the garden. And I think it really kind of got a good sense. I mean, you get sent out to weed. That was never fun, but
right.
But just to be able to have like the, butternut squash, Hubbard squash, eggplant, tomatoes, fresh basil, herbs all the time in the summer. It was really gave you an appreciation. And I think, one of the ways I bonded with my mom was to be in the kitchen around her. And then, part B of that was being the kid of a single parent. The necessity of feeding yourself on a regular basis is there too. So, I think I took what I utilized and then learned how to work the kitchen in my favor.
That's awesome. Like that's like the idyllic kind of like, right? Like the story that you envision.
Yeah.
For like a great chef, right? It's like you have this like these food memories that are like really, poignant and
and what was otherwise 2 really mean women.
Yeah. Were they?
Oh yeah.
Well, so where did that like proficiency in cooking come from with your grandmother? Was she just really into food, or did she was into food.
She traveled a lot. My grandfather was in the Foreign Service. He was stationed in Romania, Paris. Like I think when she lived in Paris, she picked up a Matisse off the street and sold it and sent us all to college. Like it was like one of those things.
Wow.
Yeah. And so Yeah, and I think while she was in France, she really liked Julia Child. She really liked a lot of the Jacques
So
Pepin,
Julia, Julia and Jacques are responsible
Yeah.
for the concassing and
yeah,
blanching.
and kind of followed theirs. Used the joy of cooking. Used James Beard a lot. Like she had all the cookbooks in her thing, and we went through all those. And so she was pretty detail oriented. And her whole house was. She lived in like this really cool mid-century modern house out in the middle of the woods, and you'd see foxes and deer run by and stuff, but like everything in the house had a place and a purpose.
Yeah, very meticulous.
Minimalistic, meticulous. And my mom was pretty minimalistic and meticulous. And so that's kind of the sensibility I've always tried to bring to food.
I think it definitely shows in how you're doing what you do and the concepts that you're doing, for sure.
Yeah, Carrie, my brother, was more 300 ingredients, and somehow they all worked.
Yeah.
He's probably the best cook I've ever worked with.
Yeah, I only worked with Kerry for a couple of weeks. When I basically took over for him at Barrington's when he opened. With you at Good Food. He was very good. Like he had his systems down. I think that Kerry would have been a really amazing chef for that situation. His communication wasn't great. Like he didn't like talking to anybody.
No.
And so like I really had to like dig
Right.
like I had to corner him on the stage and be like, yo, I need the method for this. Like I'll just do it my way, but I want it to be right. So like and force him to tell me, you know, the method for whatever I was
remember
making.
you and Kyle used to make fun of us because there would be no food in the walk-in.
Yeah.
And you're like, where's the food?
Yeah.
Like, how are we supposed to cook?
Right. What?
And B, I would be like, I think I have this idea. And Carrie would be like, do you want that sauteed or grilled? And I'd be like, sauteed. And you're like, okay. And new people would be like, what just happened there? Like, there was no level of communication, and yet Carrie knew exactly what he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys had a very inter communication that was minimalist.
Yeah.
That I still don't understand, but I guess you get that from being siblings and then also working together.
Yeah.
You weren't always the best communicator either.
No.
You're kind of would you consider yourself to be an introvert?
Yeah.
Like you're
Absolutely.
pretty quiet.
Yeah.
I think you and I always got along really well.
Yeah.
I'm very like, I would just be like, yo, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I'd like kind of force like whatever.
No, you would corner me. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be like, hey, Bruce, what's going on with this? Like, what am I doing? So has that ever been difficult for you? Like, do you find that difficult managing your teams or like?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've tried to get a little better at it, but I still
it's something you actively are like aware of and like trying to.
And at least now I can acknowledge it and understand it.
Yeah.
And I can understand why people are getting frustrated with me. So, and try to alleviate that.
Yeah. So are you aware of that? Like when when it's happening, like if you're trying to, you're doing a menu change or something at one of the restaurants and the cooks are kind of like.
I had a whole instance with that a couple days ago where there was a dinner that I was trying to plan at Good Food, and I just did a horrendous job of communicating with management about it. And then so all of a sudden the outside people that are trying to organize the dinner were calling her, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about right now. And I was like, remember I mentioned that to you like 2.5 months ago while you were busy doing this?
Oh, that.
And she's like, oh, no, I don't. And so I still do it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I dropped the ball. This is my fault. I will fix this for you. And it's funny right now, like just adding the littlest needle to the hay, or the littlest thing, like to anyone's vision of what they need to accomplish right now is just overwhelming for, just because we have so many moving parts right now, and there's so many fingers and so many holes in the dike, and
I feel like people are like full to their brink of just like, everything, stress. Workload, just managing your personal shit too. Like, all this stuff spills over, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is our livelihood and it affects how we live and our families and all this stuff.
Yeah. My wife has asked me, about something. She's like, well, can't you just ask her to do that? And I've like sat down and I said, let me explain it to you this way. I feel like I have a dozen Goodwill chips I can use. And I have to be And when those goodwill chips are out, I'm in big trouble. And I have to like use those goodwill chips for something that's really, really, really needs to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
otherwise
I can't waste these.
I can't waste these.
Yeah.
These are just too
valuable.
Too valuable.
Yeah.
Right
And I
now.
won't, and I'm not getting any more. This is all I have.
This is all I have for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think after that, she kind of understood why, like, what was, is the juice worth the squeeze type thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's something that I've been learning through our path is that, I've been one of those people early on that always wanted everything to be perfect or as close to perfect as possible. And like my vision of what that is and all that. And I've had to learn that, first of all, that thing doesn't exist. You have to come to terms with that eventually.
Yeah.
And then when you come to terms with that,
how many times have you been told nothing's ever good enough for you?
Yeah. Like I'm like, okay, got it.
So, my response is no, it's not.
Yeah,
I'm always going to try and achieve better.
Right. That's how you get to be excellent.
Right.
You push for perfection and you reach excellence. Right. I think it was Charlie Trotter that said that maybe.
Yeah.
Anyways, like that stuck in my head and like that's how I functioned for so long. And now, my approach has softened a little bit or changed where I'm a lot more analytical about how important is this to the goal. Right. And being able to say, is this a level 10, or is this a 3 or a 4? How much energy do I need to put on that? How pissed off do I have to get about this? How frustrated or, how much energy do I have to put into it? And I've learned to do that better.
Yeah.
And that's helped. That's helped me manage stress, my workload, like all these moving parts, because
I've tried to get more realistic with my expectations. Like this is the piece of clay I have in this place. And, am I realistic to think, like what can this person produce? It's like getting mad at your dog for not being able to speak English. It's just, so I try to know what my staff's limitations are. I try to manage my menus and reservations around that. And then within that realm, it's like I try not to get disappointed when they are fallible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, hold them accountable to standards.
Mm-hmm. That is the difficult,
and that's really hard to find people that want to be held accountable to standards.
Yeah.
Did you care what you made your first couple jobs because you knew that it was going to get you on a career path that, like,
I gave zero fucks what I was doing. When I was working for Michael Mina, or Danielle or Andrew Carmelini, I didn't care what they asked me to do.
Yeah,
I was like, "Are you going to show me?
Right.
I'll do whatever you want me to do."
Well, and you can pay me $10 an hour because I know the difference between $10 and $15. Maybe I can buy myself an extra cocktail when I go out, but it's not. I need to learn what it is that and how to run a successful business. Because at the end of the day, like if I'm making $12 or $15 an hour, really isn't going to amount to much. What's going to amount to much is when I own 3 restaurants and I'm tunning it and making a good living and able to send my kid to private school and I realize that I still don't know anything.
Right. Like there's still like a whole ton of shit that I don't know.
Right. But I sacrificed my paycheck for that knowledge, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Totally. Me too.
I mean, get really confused when people get caught up in $1. That's 50 cents more an hour.
This touches what you're touching on now is something that we just had a group meeting with our management front and back of the house for our 2 stores here in Charlotte. And we were talking about that. And one of the frustrating things as owners and leaders for our group is that we have a lot of young managers and chefs and people that aspire to do more. And we consider ourselves to be experts at what we're doing in our stores. I mean, I have a ton of experience with amazing chefs. Gene, Danielle, like all these guys, like I've learned from great chefs along the way. I've never worked for shitty chefs ever. I've been really lucky in that regard and thoughtful about picking the people I work with. And it pisses me off when my team doesn't take that Like, I'm very open about my experience. Nothing is secret.
Right.
You know, my recipe book is open to everybody.
Right. And the reason I know this is because I fucked it up when someone told me to do it differently. And
so when I ask you to do something, I tell you, like, do it. Yeah. Like, I'm trying to spare you guys the headache. It's so frustrating. Like, and we always go, Pat was quoting the Cat Stevens song. Was it Father and Son?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you're young and that's your fault.
Yeah.
Like, you're guilty of being young. So just listen to what we have to say and do it. And you have this like pool of knowledge that's here to help.
Right.
So take advantage of it.
Yeah. Christian does stuff. My older son does stuff, and it's just, he'll ask me and I'll say, you know, I wouldn't do that if I were you, and this is the reason. And he does it. He does it anyways, and it blows up in his face. And it's like, well, the reason I knew that was because someone had told me not to do it, but I did it anyways.
Right.
And so I had the same result you had. So it's hard to get too worked up about it, because you know, like, if I'm honest with myself, I fuck the same stuff up the way he fucks it up. Yep. So, yeah,
totally. So I want to just talk about your cookbook, Bruce Moffett Cooks. So I got the signed copy here. I got this right here.
My favorite was when I went to Charleston Food and Wine, and you're like, oh, if you see Andrew Carmelini, tell him I said hi. And I saw him, and I was like, oh, Jamie Lynch says hi. And he's like, he said you'd look at me like, and I was like, he said you'd look at me like that. I said, Monkey. And he's like, oh, Monkey, how's he doing?
Yeah, that's funny. I actually, you know, yeah, so my nickname when I worked with Andrew, I think I got that name when we were working at Le Cirque together. He was a sous chef at Le Cirque. And the team there ended up going to Café Beloud. Right. I ended up going to Oriole for a minute. Anyways, long story short is my nickname was Monkey. And I don't think anybody ever knew my real name in that kitchen. And the funny thing is, I went to La Conda Verde. This was after Five Church was open. We had already been through the DNC. Like, we were clearly, we'd hit it.
Right.
And so we went to New York, and I took my business partners to go to La Conda Verde, which is Andrew's place.
Which is delicious.
It's so amazing, man. It's so good. And I wanted to share that with them. I was like, this is my mentor, right? This is the guy who, you know, got my head out of my fucking ass and taught me how to cook. Like, and so let's go to his place. So I made a reservation or whatever. And we showed up for the reservation, and I gave him my name. Mm-hmm. And one of the food runners came up and was like, Mr. Monkey. And like shook my hand. It was like, I haven't seen you in like forever. And it was literally one of the food runners from Café Beloud, like 15 years before.
Yeah, there's still the same dishwasher at Metropolis.
That's
like
amazing.
I went with Larry like 20 years later. He was still there.
Yeah,
it was crazy. But yeah, the cookbook.
So how was this experience?
It was difficult, a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
So
I worked with UNC Press and Kia. She originally pitched me the idea. We did an outline. We gave it to a literary agent who said she was interested. And then she basically said, only celebrity chefs make cookbooks these days. I'm not interested. And I was like, well, why did you waste our time?
Right.
And then so Kia shopped it around, and we managed to land a deal with, against my better judgment, UNC Press. And it kind of took off from there. My original idea for the cookbook was I wanted to write it kind of as more of a biographical, and UNC being a university press and more kind of changed that. But I got a lot of the biographical stuff, but I kind of wanted to start out like my whole culinary journey and, you know, where I was like when I was 6, and give like I used to make French toast and coffee cake and pancakes from scratch. And so I kind of wanted to start out with that and then move through my whole culinary journey and kind of talk about my influences and how I had to do different things. But they wanted more of a traditional cookbook. So, you know, fortunately I was able to kind of, initially I was pretty passive about writing it and let Kia kind of take the reins. And then I started to read it, and I was like, you know, I want this to be more of my narrative and less, you know, sound less like Kia and more like me. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, so we kind of worked it out. A lot of the introductions that I wrote that are in the cookbook to recipes, like I was really got to to hone in on kind of my background and what I did and how I did it, and then kind of how I got inspired to do certain dishes and things like that. And there's somewhere I took the lazy way out, which is kind of like, hey, we love this glorious dish, but there's a lot of them that have like some real interest and depth to it, and that's one thing I'm proud of. And the photography part I did with Stephanie Haviv, and it was a really cool experience, because when we started out, we thought, okay, I would be like, okay, this is how we plate this dish, and this is how it will look on the cookbook. And I just remember in particular, we do this quail dish that's absolutely delicious, and I did it, and I put it in on a plate, and it looked like two brown mounds on a plate, and I was like, oh, this is not going to work, and so just kind of like being able to go through the mental process of like, well, how are we going to make this pop? And then like putting it in one of those oval all-clad containers and leaving it tied up. And then just draping a piece of foie gras over it, and then like putting a bouquet of fresh herbs in with it. And it's not how we serve it in the restaurant, but under those guises, it looks delicious. And and just realizing that, I think the first like 20 pictures we took, the food was hot and everything was properly seasoned and all that. And I was like, wait, no one's eating this.
Yeah.
And then
it just needs to look.
Yeah, it needs to look the way. And a lot of times, and we learned to like shoot it on smaller plates so that you could get closer to it and things like that. And that you didn't necessarily even have to use a plate. You could just put it on whatever. On wood, yeah. And so like just the kind of that type of detail was a lot of fun, and writing the little, but we made some big mistakes too.
Like what? Give me one of those mistakes I'm interested in.
Well, Kia would come in and go through. I would make the recipe, and she would write it down. And so a lot of times, the translation between what I had done and what she had written down didn't sync up.
Gotcha.
And I think if I had to do it again, I would have written the recipe. I would have written down the recipe. I would have done it out in the kitchen and have her reconcile the recipe, and then we'd go back and reconcile, and then we would have sent it out. But we kind of had her write it down, and then she sent it out to be tested, and there was a lot of stuff where it was just really confusing, and just the level of understanding, like the consistency in the narrative, like in the descriptions. Like, you have to start out preheat oven to 350. I think we always had that joke in the kitchen, like, how do you know how long do you cook this? And we would always say until it's done.
Right.
And it's just like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And and me, I'm like, well, it depends. Like, how thin is your ribeye? Like, is it a thicker ribeye, smaller, or is it thinner? Like, I can give you an ounce, but like, and is it towards the nerve end? Is it fattier? Is it less fatty? Like, these things are all going to affect the cook time on it. Is your oven properly calibrated, and this and that and the other? And
you doing it in a cast iron pan, or are you doing it in a stainless steel pan?
Yeah, and so like just kind of dealing with that was kind of foreign to me. And it's just like, well, you cook it for this long. And then like getting back into it and seeing a few of the mistakes I made and not being able to change them is like hard. Like there's a potato leek soup thing which has too much white wine in it, and it's just, you can't change it now.
You're like, dang it. Now everybody that makes this is gonna be like, this guy drinks too much. He's
1 cup. How did I get 1 cup? That was supposed to be half a cup. But there's a few things I missed. And so going back and looking at that, but like at the end of the day, it's really cool and to have something like that and just be a published author. And have something that has your words in it and that you can show to your kids and things like that. It took a lot longer. It was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. And
how long did it take for you to put it together? From like when you decided, you finally got sold on the idea?
It took us, I think we had 18 months to put it together, and then we had 12 months to put it together, and then it took like almost 2 years for them to publish it.
Gotcha.
Because going through University Press, they had to get it approved by a board of directors. So it was like a 4-month until the board of directors met and stuff like that. And so,
what would you want people to
get? And then editing it is just crazy.
Were you involved in the editing?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of like back and forth.
I read that cookbook 70 times. Oh, like unbelievable amount of back and forth. I finally had to get Cat Carter to help me finish it.
I gotcha. You're just like, I can't read this again or talk, like somebody help.
And that was funny. I had, I'd go back and forth, and then I sent it off to Mike Graff, Laura's husband. And he like literally got it back to me in 3 days and tore all the redundant, unnecessary words out like this.
Yeah, that's a gift.
It was one. Yeah,
that's a gift.
Yeah, and Kia, Kia's kid, but she's wordy.
Yeah,
Kat helped me pull
just
half of the words out, and then Mike pulled, and so we got it under.
Was the publisher kind of specific about what they wanted,
Very
like from
specific.
a word? Like we want X amount of words per section
to the word. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So there's like some pretty strict.
Yeah. And then we came
guidelines.
in within that realm. It's not to the word, but they have a small window.
Yeah. Gotcha. So what would you do it again? Do you want to do it again?
I think if I could do what I originally set out to do,
if you could do your book the way you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And then it's just, but finding the different like coming up with, I guess you can come up with different recipes and stuff.
So the recipes in here, how do you feel about these recipes now? Like, do you feel that these recipes are a good representation of like what your food's about and how you approach?
Yeah, I think there's a good combination, and I've, addressed it of like my North sensibilities meet, kind of with my Southern experience. And so, I remember coming down here and not really knowing what a sweet potato was, or having ever used one, and going to the market and just seeing stacks of sweet potatoes, and
you're like, I got to figure out what to do with those, I guess.
Yeah. And so just kind of, there's a lot of kind of how I kind of took my, Northern sensibilities and just started to integrate them into the Southern culture. And so, when I would get here, it'd be like, oh, it's tomato season. And so you go in second week of August to go get your tomatoes, and tomato season's almost over. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I missed it.
I missed it.
What already?
And so like just having to kind of mentally adjust to like when you're going to put the tomato salad on the menu and stuff. And so I think I tried to incorporate as much of that into the book as I could. Because originally I wanted to call it South by North, like South and BYE North.
Are there any recipes in here that are like classics of yours, like things that you like? I don't like signature dishes or things that would be on your restaurant menus, or are all these recipes
No, they're all from restaurant.
Okay, so these are all things you've done before and think are indicative.
Yeah, like the pecan crusted lamb and all that stuff.
Yeah. Cool. I wasn't sure if it was the kind of thing where you just approached it from like a fresh slate and said, hey, if I had carte blanche to do the dish that I think's indicative of my cooking, this is what it'd be. These are actually dishes that you've served and success.
Yeah, I leaned heavily on Larry, and I leaned heavily on Drew for helping me like write and test the recipes.
Awesome.
So otherwise it would have just been too much.
Well, I don't know that you've convinced me that I want to do one. I've thought about it. I thought it might be fun, but I don't even know if I could put one together.
It's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And the editing part's probably the hardest.
Yeah. I'm a terrible writer too. I have to have somebody write it, which is also another thing that I'm like, I don't know how I'd collaborate and get somebody to take whatever jumbled mess is in my brain and make that like, make that appealing to somebody.
Yeah, I'm a pretty good writer, so I think that I ran into a little trouble there, which was like, you've made no attempt to sound like me, and so
you wanted it to be from your narrative, but not translating maybe the way you wanted it to.
Yeah. I'm not wordy, and I'm not sitting on my porch eating watermelon and popping the seeds, and stuff like that. Yeah, to get my inspiration. It's just. For me, it's very short, concise. You know how I am, short, concise.
Yep.
Not a lot of extra words thrown in there.
No, there's not a whole lot of extra. Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about, or before we kind of wrap it up for the day?
No, you got anything good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was
touched on a lot.
Yeah, I think it's good. We did an hour and 20 minutes. I feel like we got a good kind of rounded approach into what you're all about. I really enjoyed catching up with you.
Yeah, it was good seeing you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.